Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Lawyer Interviews. I'm your host, Jeff Dillon. And today we have a really awesome episode. We're going to be talking about some hot legal topics right now. And with us, we have Badar Tareen. Badar, thank you so much for joining us. Okay. The silent wave. Yep.
I'm giving you the silent treatment on this whole podcast, just so you know.
What a start. Great. Yes. Well,
Great start.
Hopefully we want audio. So Badar, being funny here, he is, in addition to a very accomplished civil rights lawyer, he is a international comic sensation. Isn't that right, Badar?
Yeah. It depends what kind of sensation you're talking about, but yeah, I'll say sensation.
So I'll let you talk yourself up, but you're based out of DC, been a comic for a while, been a lawyer for a little longer, I believe, and
the South Asian sensation.
South Asian sensation, perfect. And recently you did an international trip.
Yeah, I was lucky. I got to feature for a comedian. Her name is Zarna Garg, and she also used to be an attorney and is now just crushing it as a comedian, selling out big venues. And so she asked me to go with her to Dubai for the Dubai Comedy Festival. So we performed at this venue called the Dubai Opera. It's 2,000 people. We got there right when there were historic floods in Dubai in large parts of the Middle East. So just getting out of the airport was difficult because there wasn't much staff. People couldn't get to work, but it was really fun. I've been to Dubai like on layovers, but I've never spent several days there. It's a really interesting place. I didn't realize that 70% of that area is South Asian, Indian, Pakistani. Like if you could speak only Hindi, you could get by in Dubai. It's really cool. And then there's some parts of it that are super high end. I mean, I'm kind of biased because I think everything in America is the best. But then when I get there, I look at their bike share system and all their bikes are electronic, not just one. And there's like 3 staff members at the bike share there to help you. So like, it's just a little bit more high end. People were nice. It was a fun show.
Yeah. How were the crowds?
Great crowds. It was a little tricky to prepare for because there just aren't a lot of, because they're South Asian, but they're in a Middle Eastern country and they're immigrants, but they're Americanized. They speak English. So trying to kind of prepare for that was a challenge. So I just called every brown comic I knew and just said, let me work on this with you. But it worked out really well. It was a great crowd. It was a lot of fun. Zarna was great too. And there's another comedian, Aditi Mittal, who's like one of the first sort of female comics in India who kind of made it big. She was there and fantastic too. So it was a really awesome show.
Really, that's awesome. And people watching, make sure you follow Badar on Instagram. He has what is it, at Badar Tareen?
Yep, at Badar Tareen, Badar Tareen.
Perfect. Yes. For great Pakistani humor in general, and and also, like I said, a big time civil rights lawyer. And today we're going to get into some topics that have been in the news. If you're watching this, please throw us a like. Likes go a long way. And but yeah, you've been practicing as a civil rights lawyer for 10 years.
Yeah, I didn't start out initially as a civil rights attorney, but yeah, I got out of law school in 2010 and passed the bar right then. So yeah, I guess that would be 14 years, I guess.
Wow. Yep.
But yeah, I've been doing the civil rights now for the last, I guess, 7 or 8 years now. So
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so let's get right into it. I mean, it's a hot time for being a lawyer and talking about politics. So right off
the bat, lawyer in the same sentence.
And we're hot lawyers on hot topics. There's we had 2 political figures being convicted of felonies. I believe this is one's the son of the president. We have Hunter Biden. This just came out this week. Otherwise, we have, as we know, Mr. Donald J. Trump, former president, convicted on 34 different counts. I don't think this has ever happened in history before. What do you think on this?
Well, it's kind of interesting is that both cases are kind of similar, and they're both about falsely providing information about yourself in some way or falsely reporting information. So what Hunter Biden, I mean, it's a felony charges, but it was about gun possession, but it was largely about gun possession while being addicted to certain types of substances, having access to illegal drugs and not being truthful about that. So it's kind of interesting that they got him on that, not the thing you think about necessarily with Hunter Biden's guns, but then similarly with the Trump case, again, it was about falsification of business records where he didn't really report in the correct way that he was basically giving hush money payments to a former porn star for an alleged affair. So it's just interesting that they got both of them on kind of about being truthful and not being truthful,
So weird
which
because
I
you
just find
when you
very
think of
ironic.
politics, when I think of politics, I think of truth sayers, honesty. So I mean, like, where is this coming from, right?
Well, Hunter less so, right? I mean, he's less of a politician, but yes, you're right, the son of the president. So I
Mm-hmm.
just found that to be so interesting. Ironic. I mean, both of their responses are very different. Hunter's like, okay, I'll accept whatever. I'm disappointed. I'll accept it. And then Trump is like, it's all rigged. It's
Yeah,
all.
right.
I do find it also interesting too that if for those people who might politically not like Hunter Biden or his family, that's fine. But the fact that it's on for a gun charge, which
Right.
so a lot of people who are maybe not fans of Hunter Biden might be very much in favor of pro gun rights. And this is a gun rights issue, whether or not the government should having these types of laws that prevent you from having access to guns under these circumstances. So
Yes.
if I'm a free reign guns guy, but I hate Biden, there must be some conflict. I don't know if uh, that
You have
cognitive
to,
dissonance is there.
right, you have to twist yourself in quite the pretzel to be able to, be pro and against all the different aspects of,
Right.
politically on one end, policy wise on another. Now, another, I don't know what you think about this too, but I I feel like in both these cases they're not like bogus charges, but they're not like very exciting convictions. These aren't like
No.
crazy crimes, and I believe in, at least in Trump's case, these could have been misdemeanors. So they've been trumped up, if you want to call it that way.
Ah,
uh,
I can never use that word anymore. I can't say Trump card anymore. It has a different
uh,
meaning.
yes,
He
yes,
took
it
that from
does.
us.
Right. And so on the Trump case, I don't know how familiar you are with like misdemeanor versus felonies and how things can be at the judge's discretion brought to a higher level.
I think that a lot of people are saying that it's unlikely he's going to see a prison cell, you know, given his interesting record and the circumstances. I mean, they still have to decide that, but I'd be surprised if he got prison time for that. It's up to 4 years. I think it was more
Mm-hmm.
about making a statement. I think probably the reason they chose this less than sexy case is it's probably a lot easier to prove, right? I mean, Cohen went down for basically the same thing, so it'd be hard to not see Trump go down for it. It's like when they got Capone for taxes, right? The least sexy thing, but it was an easier layup because there's probably more evidence and it's less
Mm-hmm.
difficult to prove as opposed to I'm trying to actually overturn an entire election. That's so complicated. It's so
Right.
difficult to prove. Whereas this one is a much more of a simple layup. The timing of this is terrible. If you're a fan, whatever you think of Trump one way or another, I mean, this might have the reverse effect. If the effect is I want sort of this maintain this dignity of the judicial system and no one's above the law, including former presidents, now you're seeing a former president actually getting more support and more. I mean, his fundraising website actually
Yeah.
crashed as soon as the verdict was
Right.
announced. So it's almost has this reverse effect on a political sense as well. And I wonder too about the Biden conviction, see how that's going to turn out. My theory is it might just be like it's a wash. You know, Trump was convicted on something. Biden's son, which is people are going to basically assume is the
Right.
same thing
Yeah.
as Biden, got convicted. It's a wash. They're
It's
both
kind of,
criminals.
it's nice, like poetic symmetry. I don't know. There's something
Yeah.
nice on, I don't nice about that, but kind of evens the playing field, you could say. Back to Biden's thing, though. I feel like this kind of just came out of nowhere. Like we've all been thinking
Mm-hmm.
about Trump this whole time, and then
Right.
now it's Hunter Biden for these gun charges. So what exactly happened? He lied on his application for getting the guns, saying I'm not
Yeah, I
drunk.
believe that's what it was. Like you're not permitted to have guns if you have these circumstances like you're addicted to like you can't possess a gun while you're a user and addict of illegal drugs.
Mm-hmm.
That's prohibited. So that's what he did, and alleged that's what the court found that he did. And so um, it's it's kind of cut and dry. I mean, it's kind of hard to. I mean, they're
Right.
disappointed by the verdict. I don't think they wanted that to happen. His mom was in pretty much every one of those hearings except for the sentencing itself. And Biden himself, the president, did give a statement saying, "I'm a president, but I'm a dad too. We're proud of our son." And that's kind of all they did. But
So maybe a political win by having his son.
I mean, he could face up to, I mean, I don't think he's going to get this, but up to 25 years and $750,000, which is much worse than the 4 years that Trump got for falsifying his business records. But I mean, I doubt he's going to get the full 25 years. That seems like a lot,
Hey,
but
when he
that would be
came
the
out,
max.
he'll be still like 20 years younger than Biden is now. So
I believe 75 years younger, but yeah, something like that.
okay. Yeah. All right. Well, it is interesting. Maybe we'll chat again when the sentencings come out, because I think you brought it up, like Trump's sentencing. I think that comes out pretty close to when these debates and the RNC conventions are. This is going to
Yep.
be, the setting of where Trump is going to be. Any predictions there on what's going to happen?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh my gosh, political. That's another landmine. I will say about the Hunter Biden one. This one, I'll get to your Trump question. I believe that his sentencing will happen before the election, although President Biden has said he's not going to pardon him. Uh, but with Trump, I've given up predicting what's going to happen with that man or what he's going to do, he's not going to do. I mean, it did actually help his fundraising, and it did not in any way affect his support. And we know that legally speaking, he could serve as president even if he was convicted. It's interesting. I'm a federal employee. I have to go through an extensive background check to be one. And if I had convictions on my record, I probably couldn't get the job. So it's funny that my potential boss could be someone who has sort of a lower bar of what's required in terms of criminal record than
Yeah.
a much, much, much lower level employee. So I find that very ironic that the bar for what you was required to be president in some ways is, I don't know if antiquated is the right word, but I would just say bizarrely inconsistent with how every other major company or
Mm-hmm.
organization hires. You're an attorney at a firm. You probably wouldn't have that job if you had those convictions on your record. So I just
Right.
think it's interesting that he could be president from a jail cell, arguably. So I don't know.
Hey,
I I I still think he could very, very realistically win this election. I don't doubt that.
yeah, there's
I would not.
you, nothing stopping you constitutionally. Can still be president. Anything from jail, maybe. I don't know. Like it's
Yeah, and politically speaking, there are some of the states that Biden won last time that were important to his victory may not show up to vote for him this time around, given all the things that are happening. So it's hard to predict. I don't know.
yeah. Well,
I
yeah.
He
Okay.
could
Well,
win. Trump could absolutely win this election.
yeah. Yes. Good. That is true. If that moving on though, let's keep staying with
Yeah.
Trump, but getting into some of his, that's not, it's one of four cases, right, that he's dealing with, and another one is
Yeah.
whether he's gonna one of the other ones has to do with if the president has immunity from being criminally charged, and that case has gone up to the Supreme Court, which brings us to our next topic: is the Supreme Court Justice Alito. He's being asked to recuse himself from some of these cases. What's going on there?
I think this is such an interesting case. And by the way, when I was doing a little bit of research on this, when you just Google Alito recusal, one of the first articles that comes out, that was 6 days ago, it said that Alito recuses himself. No, not that case. And he recently recused himself for a bankruptcy case.
Oh,
Uh, it was a unanimous decision. All eight justices voted in a certain way, and the interesting thing about recusal, I was looking a little bit into it about what's the history and what reasons judges usually recuse themselves from cases. Is it usually happens when there's a financial interest, like you have stock in a company.
yeah,
That's kind of the biggest one. But yeah, if you have a family member involved or someone you know, the standard, I believe, and it was very recent that they had this voluntary standard for Supreme Court justices and when they can recuse themselves. And it's basically, wasn't it something like when the impartiality of the judge can be reasonably questioned, I believe, is something along those lines.
mm-hmm.
Um, I find this one interesting because I think it's different than Justice Thomas. So similarly, he has a spouse who was involved with some of the protests in favor of Trump after January 6th, and he didn't recuse himself either, although Thomas recused himself from some other case, but not this one.
Hmm.
And the logic behind that was, well, that's my wife. She's a separate person. She has the right to her beliefs, and that doesn't mean that I can't be different in that. And I kind of understand that argument. Alito's is a little bit different because it was an upside down flag that was hung at his house, right? And
Yeah.
so that's a little bit different than your spouse on their own going to a protest rally. This is your home. And I feel like you have some kind of say or decision making capacity on what is on your house.
Right. I mean,
And it
not,
was like an
yeah.
ups. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, no, I mean, not to make, the age old dad kind of jokes, but we're both married men. How much control do we really have over the decor?
Very little. However, if that's a good question. Yes. Chris Rock has that funny bit of if you really think it's your house, take a picture of your mom and just put it up somewhere and that will come down really quick, right? Uh, but no, I hear what you're saying about, yeah, like aesthetic choices, whatever, our spouses maybe. But I think when it comes to like a political demonstration and you're a freaking 1 out of 9 people who head an entire branch of government
Yeah.
and there's a lot on the line and there's a decision made to put a freaking upside down flag at your home. It's not just about I disagree with the outcome of this hearing. I thought it was unfair or something like that. It's that upside down flag makes a bigger statement about the entire system being rigged
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
against
So this
President Trump,
upside down
right?
flag, what is it? It was like a part of a symbol of January 6th. The protesters saying this is all rigged, a bad
It's like,
democratic.
yeah, it's a general symbolism of that, right? So I
Yeah.
think that that's a little bit different. And again, it is hanging on your home. I mean, jokes aside, there must have been conversations about it, and it's your house is like your is both of your property together. It's a
Okay.
statement you both are making. So like if my wife, let's say she was, I don't know, let's say she was really in favor of this local politician who, let's say, a Green Party member, and I wanted the independent member, I don't think we would have either one of our candidates like prominently displayed outside the house unless my candidate was next to hers. You know what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't just be one and it wouldn't be a
Right.
bold
Right.
statement like that. So I do think he must have had a say and he must have had some involvement in that. And I do think
Hmm.
that even if he personally believes that he is not biased or that he could do a good job, a reasonable person can question the impartiality of him. And I do
Yeah.
think that does raise some questions about the integrity of the court.
So do you
So
think he should have recused himself?
I think you should. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, look at it this way. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, right?
Yeah.
She recused herself in this affirmative action case where it involves board members of Harvard. She
Hmm.
won at one point, not now, was on that board. So she recused herself for that. You know what I mean? Like for one time being part of something that
Right.
she's no longer part
So
of.
it's like a worthwhile point that recusal is not super uncommon. That people that this
It's not.
happens, and I mean, this is an important, impactful case. It has to do, has they all are. If it's at the Supreme Court, so there's still 8 other justices, but no, it is interesting that you say that. Because the other on the other side of things, I don't know if you heard that he had these recordings come out, right? Someone like
Yeah.
recorded, and
Yeah.
if you heard his
So
wife, good luck convince like calming her, like she sounded very strong minded about these
yeah.
flags being up, all different kinds of flags, like I can't imagine him being able to say like no, that sounds like a tough conversation. That's all I'm saying, like
Yeah. Yeah. He's got
yeah,
a firecracker. He's got a firecracker on his hands, but
yeah, I mean, strong
but
women,
it's
great, great.
yeah, strong everybody. My point isn't even so much that he should or shouldn't have his wife do it. I mean, she's a free person; she could do what she
Right.
wants. But I'm saying a reasonable person can just look at that. Regardless of how he feels, regardless of how good of a job he's doing, a reasonable person can look back and say, "I'm not sure about the fairness of this." And that's largely what a recusal is. It's about the fairness of it, the the integrity of the institution as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a reasonable person could look at that and be like, I think you can make that same argument with Thomas too, in fact. But this one I think is a little stronger because it's, again, not her on her own time outside the house doing something. It's their home. And
Right.
it's a very vivid symbol of something that is largely what the case is about.
Okay.
Was so I would say, I would argue that. I don't know. Do you agree? Or I mean, reasonable people can disagree on this one. I think you should recuse himself.
Yeah. I mean, thanks for calling me reasonable, first of all.
Yeah.
That I could
Don't
disagree.
let it get to your head. That was a one-time thing. It's a
Yeah.
token.
I don't, it's just tough when it's not him personally, in my opinion, like doing these things that he's, he's a, you kind of put them together as one package in my mind. And then all of a sudden he can't put that aside. Like if I was held to the standard of my wife all the time at work that, oh, can you believe this? If your wife is saying something else, like, I don't know, that would hinder me a lot.
Sure.
Not that I do anything similar to what he's doing, but it's just they're two independent people. Your point, it's their house. I just know how my house works. I would not be in charge of flags or any type of anything. So
yeah, but there's a lot on the line too with this case. That's the other thing. It's
that's
like the
true.
Supreme Court. You know what I mean? Like if there was that much on the line, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like our jobs, we're nobodies. Nobody cares about us. But like if we had like we were
Yeah.
one of the 9 people that's going to decide the fate of America, arguably the fate of the world, I wouldn't want
Yeah, and there's enough.
my
I would also say there's enough Trump appointed and conservatives on the court that they don't even really need Alito. So,
yeah.
but before we lose you, and again, people, thanks for watching this. Don't forget, give it a like, give it a comment, maybe a share. Why not? If you, we want to talk about one more topic that I guess you hold dear to your heart.
Very dear, very close to my heart.
Yes, we have the Texas porn law.
This is a really interesting First Amendment issue, isn't it? I mean, basically, you have this Texas law that had a couple different things in it. One was you have to have age verification types
Mm-hmm.
of mechanisms before you can access the porn websites in Texas. And there was this sort of things that Texas law was requiring to say about the porn, to how it's bad for you. The Fifth Circuit, if I remember correctly, said that part you can't have, the disclaimer, although I would argue that's probably true about how porn's bad for you. But then there was the Fifth Circuit said, no, Texas can have this. And the Supreme Court had an opportunity to sort of enjoin this
Mm-hmm.
decision, and they did not. So it's up, but it'll probably go up soon, or it'll be litigated further probably. And my issue was, I just think this is so interesting because the Supreme Court had this case a while back, the Communications Decency Act. It was a decision on that law in 1996 that basically kind of banned certain indecent material from online, and the court was talking about how that was too much of a restriction on protected First Amendment speech for adults. Even though you want to try to ban things for children or younger people, might have a good reason to do it, you still can't have too many of these sort of obstacles in the way of adults having access to protected First Amendment speech. And I think that's really interesting. Virginia actually has a similar law here too. Don't ask me how I know, but similar, there's age verification things. And the argument is that the age verification stuff of, it's not just this is how old I am. I think they actually make you put in information about
Right.
yourself.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more of a obstacle to get to. The arguments that the Pornhub people will make is like, well, there are other ways you could block our sites. There's filters you can use on your own computer. But like, most people don't want to put their driver's license information or social security or whatever information onto a porn site.
No, it sounds like such a scam. Like
That
I would
just
be
sounds like a scam.
right.
People could be outed because there's such a stigma to it. What was that? The Ashley Madison case, similar, not as case, but it was that whole thing where
Oh yeah, all over Netflix.
that have an affair. Yeah, all over Netflix, have an affair, go on this website, people put their info in, and it was released who was trying to have an affair. So I can understand the need for privacy. So is that an infringement? And I mean, you look at the Communication Decency Act case is a little different because that was like more of like an outright ban, not so much these specific guardrails. But I think that's a legitimate argument. I could kind of see both ways. I think there is a legitimate interest to ban pornography. I mean, we have other cases that are different, like with respect to magazines and
Yeah.
how it's okay to ban the sale of magazines to kids, but those are magazines you just get from a store, right?
Right.
This is the whole World Wide Web,
Yeah,
and
it's
it
totally
is
different.
making it harder. So I'm actually sympathetic on the First Amendment grounds about how far a state can go to ban it. I'm not saying I'm in the tank for Pornhub here, and don't
Right,
quote me
right.
on that, but it's a conversation I often start with. Whenever I talk, I'm saying I'm in the tank with Pornhub, but I think it's a legitimate argument. I think it's
Okay.
legitimate.
Right. So explain to me First Amendment porn, it's like pornography, it's what is it? Protected speech? Is that
Yeah,
how
it's
we get
speech. It's
there?
for expression. It's speech. It's
Hmm.
certainly not a religion that I know of. So it's for protected speech, expression of speech, and it's I it's something that is protected. So the idea that an adult would not be able to access something that they have a right to access
Hmm.
because of the government stopping them, and creating a chilling effect, so to speak, on that
Right.
speech is
Yeah.
um,
So we
it's a
have
tough
like
one.
four different, I think it's not just Texas, right? A couple other states. Uh,
Virginia one has it as well.
wow, Virginia, Utah, I think. Just like a list of places to, be careful when you travel. You need to like plan ahead.
Download the stuff in advance, bring it with
Yeah,
you.
bring them. Yeah, yeah. It's
Photographic memories, just keep it going.
just cross state lines or something. But
Bring the
it's
novels,
right. Yeah.
50
I
Shades of
mean,
Grey, bring the books, old
it
school.
it is interesting though, the idea of like putting in your info, like you said, like all the data protection, kind of like the hassle of going through that. And then you probably have people, you're going to circumvent, you're not going to use Pornhub, you're going to use something shadier and weirder
Yep.
that's going to, you're going to find even not the good stuff, or the safe
Right.
stuff, and
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's not going to, I wonder if that argument's made.
And there are economic consequences too. I mean, Texas is a really big state, and there are people at these porn sites who make a living and have income come from this. So the fact that a substantially large amount of people are not going to feel comfortable putting their
Oh,
information in there is going to hurt business. So I'm not saying, again, I can understand it because I'm a parent now. I got a kid, and
right,
I do think I would not want him to accessing that information either.
right.
However, I think the question is, it's my job as a parent really to protect him from that, and not the government to be a nanny state and sort of put these restrictions on everyone. But then again, the
That's
counter
right.
argument could be there are already other laws in place to protect the welfare of children as well. So it's a tough one because there are studies that legitimately show how pornography is bad for the
Yeah, yeah.
brain,
It's
and
hard.
it
It's hard
does
to be
have
sitting there making the argument. Well, the age is that there shouldn't be an age restriction. Anyone should. That don't, and I don't think that's their argument.
right. And it
Uh,
does have a negative impact even on people who are adults, porn
yeah. It's
addiction, and how
right,
it
right.
hurts your ability to be intimate and to look at people as people. So there are a lot of bad things that pornography brings, but I'm a kind of a free speech guy. So
Yeah, you don't want to. Well, if you see your kid going into your wallet and pulling out your ID, then you got to be worried, because that's what are they doing? Not the credit
right.
card. It's like, what?
Well,
What do
that's
you?
a
Dad, I need your ID. Uh-oh.
if you're old enough to use the computer, right? Aren't you old enough to take someone's driver's license?
Right.
Probably.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, it is interesting. It'll make great law school exam hypotheticals.
It's a great one. Well, what do you think? Do you think they should be able to have those restrictions in place as places like Texas, or do you think that they're overreaching?
I don't really know if I have much of a. I think that I don't think that's the way. I just see too many burdens happening. The way that they're, especially putting in your info, that really got me. I don't think, like, I think maybe in theory that's, I think they're in the right to find ways to restrict it, and maybe there's other ways they can read your face. I mean, that might be worse, I don't know, but
Yeah.
or there's punishments on the parents, criminal things, if your kid is found having to have done it and you're negligently, I don't know, I'm spitballing here, but the idea of the putting more data into that, I don't know, we'll have to go to the think tank and come up with some better policy here.
Yeah. I like the idea of making it harder for kids to access it. I'm 100%. I'm just thinking
Yeah.
like, oh, the
If it's too easy,
ID
that's
stuff.
not fun. As a kid, it has to be a
Right.
challenge. You has to, someone
We
has to
had
show it.
dial up when I was a kid.
Yeah, it can be
It took
easy.
5 minutes just to get onto the internet,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
another 10 minutes to download,
I think
a person's body.
that's the argument is these kids don't know how easy it is. And if you don't work for it, then come on.
You have
Um,
to work for the porn.
Good. All right. Well, Butter, it has been awesome talking with you about this. Thank you so much, people.
Thank you.
Everyone watching, thank you very much. Again, please give us a subscription, follow Butter, give us a like. Butter, you can be found at Badar Tareen. He has live shows in DC. You definitely want to check him out. And we will catch you next time.
Cool. Thanks for having me. This was
Thanks
great.
for coming.